Hello traders, welcome to this training session. Tips and ideas for trading the T7, which is a double top double bottom with trend strategy. Now in our educational room we call it the bet the farm trade, BTF, and so you'll see this marked up on the charts, and I've had many members ask me if I could explain the strategy in detail. So basically we have two tests and another rejection. The market then decides to go in another direction, and so that's basically what happens with a double top and a double bottom. Now members, if you go to our folders, you'll see under PowerPoints we have extensive PowerPoints there on trading double tops and double bottoms, with the exception with this setup, or it's not really with the exception with this one though, it's a trend following strategy, as I'm about to illustrate. So in a moment we'll go to the charts and I'll show you 10 or so different examples of bet the farm trades. First of all, as always, we do need to put up the disclaimer. As always, this is a raw, real and unedited recording, so if I make any blunders you'll have to forgive me. So on the understanding the risk, if you haven't read our risk disclaimer for some time, please pause the video, read the disclaimer. There is a risk in trading. It's very important that all traders understanding the risk. Understand the risk, I should say. By the way, I've been up trading all night. It's very early in the morning here for me down under, so once again got to excuse me. So let's have a look at a couple of rules here. First of all, normal money management rules apply, meaning when I say bet the farm, that's a little tongue-in-cheek. Yes, it is a very high probability trade, and that's the great thing about this. It is a high probability trade. However, you still will have losses. Right, so it's still very important that you stick with your trading plan and your money management rules. Secondly, this is a trend following strategy, so we are looking for trading in the direction of the trend. This strategy works on all time frames and markets, but verify. We know that every market has its own personality, so this will work on forex, futures and stock markets, but the specific market, just go back and just back test. Now a T7, a double top or double bottom, can be within 2 to 3 ticks of forming a perfect double top or double bottom. Walks like a duck, looks like a duck, acts like a duck. It's a duck, meaning you don't have to have exactly the same height on a double top to work, and I'll show you this on the charts. Ideally the anchor chart supports the trade. It's fantastic if you have a double top or double bottom in the sweet spot zone. That is where the anchor chart also supports the trend direction of your double top or double bottom. Ideally you have divergence. This is a real bonus, and we see this virtually every day. If you've got divergence and a trend trade, so divergence supporting the double top double bottom, that is fantastic. It probably adds another 10% to the percentage of this trade coming off for you. Ideally the T1 super scalper confirms a trade, ideally 2. I'll show you what I mean by that. So if you don't have the super scalper, just look for a close over the trigger line. So if you're going short, you want to see a close under the trigger line if going short. If you're going long, you want to see a close above the trigger line. That's if you don't have the super scalper. We're looking for bet the farm trades at the 34, 89, 200 and 535 EMAs. They're sort of the best. I really believe around the 200 is sort of your most accurate, but they're all high probability trades. So let's go and have a look at these in detail. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at a few on a couple of different markets. So we'll just have a look at the NQ, because it really doesn't matter which market you're going to trade, as I said, because all markets have different personalities. Just spend a bit of time, go back and look at 40, 50, ideally 100 trades. This is how you start to visually recognize them. So what we're looking at here, traders, is the NQ 144. So we can see here we've come down, we've got an 89B bounce at this level. You can see it here. We've got a double bottom within the tick. We have 2 super scalpers plotting white paint bars in a direction. Now in this particular one, it only rallied up probably about 8 ticks. Not a great example, but it still is a bet the farm, a T7 double bottom with divergence. So we can see here we've got divergence, and so you would have got out of this with a few ticks or a break even. Coming down here, we now have a great 200B double bottom, so a T7 with divergence, so we can see divergence on our platinum in the direction of the overall trend. And if you looked at your anchor chart here, you would see we had very strong trend support on the anchor chart. And so effectively what the market's done, it's come down, tested it once, it wants to go short, no, it's rejected that. We come up, we then had a 34B pivot bounce. We can see come down, we bounce on the 200. No, don't want to go that way, let's head back up. And that's exactly what happened here. Now moving right along, you can have what we call big picture bet the farm trades. It is a big picture is where we've come down. We can see here we've had a pivot bounce 89 and 34. We've rallied up, we've come back down, we've bounced on the 89 and the pivot. So when you get a T7 with pivot support, there's another 5 to 10% towards your trade coming off, because we know how effective pivot bounces can be. So we can see here that the anchor chart was supporting our trade, everything's pointing up, we've come down, we've tested this low. Now notice here we're within 2 ticks, so this point here is 2 ticks lower than this point, but it's still a bet the farm trade. Let's just have a look at one more on the NQ. So we can see we then rallied down, we've come up, we've then got a pivot bounce. So we can see here we've got a great double top, we've got divergence and a twin pivot bounce. Fantastic. And at the 200, thank you very much. So here is another double top bet the farm trade with a pivot bounce and divergence. It ticks all the boxes, and what a nice trade that one was. Let's now go and have a look at some trades on the CL. So we're now looking at the CL 233 tick, and in this particular case we can see at this first point here we had a nice double top in the direction of the overall trend, and this also was in a sweet spot zone. So we had the anchor chart supporting this. The only slight challenge you had with this trade is the support area down here at a previous low, and actually let me remove that because you didn't actually see that at the time, so I'm glad I removed that. So you did have a great at the 34 great double top bet the farm trade in the direction of the overall trend. And if we looked here, what was another, ignore these other little black lines here, but we also had some divergence. So very nice. Now look over here, we can see for 535, this is a 535 200B. Now this is what we call a flat top. It's a bet the farm, it's a flat top, sort of perfect double top or double bottom, but we had 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 candles all at the 535 and 200. So it's a flat top as good as a double top. We're waiting for a close below the trigger line, which we had right there. So we can see we only had one T1. You can see over here we had two T1s, 1 2. So you only had one T1 there, but a very nice trade, also with a T19. And as time went on we had even more. We can see price action just falling right away, or when I say price action, the platinum falling right away. So you had a nice T19 bounce at the 535 200, close below the trigger line, and in you go. So flat tops also qualify for bet the farm trades. Here is another once again on the CL 233 at a nice little, now you can see nice little double top here, two super scalpers. You're within 2 ticks. You can see this high is 2 ticks lower than this high, however it is a T7. Now you can see here that we still have our overall major EMAs are in a downtrend. Now what's nice about this one, you also had double divergence. You had a 2D, so you had divergence in a direction of your overall trend on both your anchor and your entry chart, and away it fell. We'll go and have a look at another. Now this is one that we can really learn from. Now what we had was a little double top here after a major divergence trade. So here is your short. You've only got one T1 plot, but as you can see here, the trend, we were effectively trading against the 200 on our anchor chart. So we can see here we're actually heading up now, and notice here that what we effectively have is we've got support. So we've entered a trade, or potentially entered a trade, and you've hit a major support area. So ideally your T7s and bet the farm trades, you want to be trading away from major support resistance areas. And you can see here it come down, was only good for a couple of ticks, then it continued back in its merry old trade direction. Now what about this here? So if we look at this here, this is actually down 3 ticks. So this low is lower by 3 ticks than this. So we can see here that this actually formed a double bottom. It's within 3 ticks. It's more of what I call a big picture formation, but it has formed a double bottom within 3 ticks with divergence, now bouncing off your 535. So I hadn't marked that up, but you could have qualified this as a double bottom. Bet the farm because you are in the direction of the overall trend. So here we have another T7 right on the 200, and you can see here you've actually got a number of your EMAs are all converging here, and it bounced up and it didn't go too far. Now I talk about in the room about watching for divergence, because even if you don't trade divergence, and once again traders, I highly recommend if you only trade with the trend until you're consistently profitable as a trend trader, and even then you can still use divergence just as a heads up when to stay out of a trade or when to potentially exit a trade. And we can see here your entry would have been here. There's your double bottom, here's your entry, you've closed above your trigger line. Now yes, it popped up 5 ticks, but then we can actually see we had a T1 plot, a reversal here. At this point we had double divergence, we had divergence on our entry chart and on our anchor. So this was more of a small loss or break even trade. Here is a nice little double top. So we've got a nice double top. We can look at all of our EMAs are in a definite downtrend. In actual fact, we had great divergence here, and away it went, it fell away. Now just while we're on this, we can see just over to the right here we had a T19 trade as well. Higher high, lower high. All right, so that was a really nice T19 trade at the same time. So once again, your T19s and T7s are singing out of the same hymn book basically. So once again, when you get your T19s, your divergence trades in the direction of the overall trend, these are also a very nice bet the farm trade. Once again, I say that with a smile on my face. You stay within your money management rules. Let's perhaps just have a look at a couple more. Now this one's a little hard to see because of the floor pivot we've got here. So we can see here we've come down, we've got a what we call a 34B here. Now this is straight after a nice T19 divergence trade in the direction of the overall trend. By the way, the anchor chart was confirming the sweet spot, so we are in a sweet spot zone here. So we come down, we then bounced up, we had a pivot bounce, so it was good for 5 ticks. We then come back up and we had another bounce on the pivot. Notice our overall trend is down. We've had a double top pivot bounce, so a T7. So it's both a bet the farm trade and a pivot bounce, and thank you very much. It was good for 10 ticks or so, $100. Now this is more of what we call big picture divergence. This is an ideal divergence, but it is one other huge thing. What is that? A pivot bounce. So we know that once we break through a pivot, we love these pivot bounces, and that's what that is formed. Here's an example where it's not as perfect. It's not a perfect double bottom, but we can see here we've come down, we've had a 200 535B, price action's gone up, we've had a 34B, come back down and bounced on the pivot. Now what I've got here is wait for the sweet spot, almost a let's see, a T7, and I forget the little that's actually meant to be a 7 there, so it's almost a T7, a double bottom. There is a 3 tick difference. However, we can see here that our longer term EMAs are in an uptrend, and if you had have looked at the anchor chart, you would see that we actually are in a sweet spot. That is, we've come up, the anchor chart is supporting the trend, plus we have divergence. So you're within 3 ticks, you have divergence, a 200 bounce, and support of the 535 just below. So we now have another great T7 bet the farm BTF. We can see here that we're in a downtrend at 200, our 89. We've bounced off the 89, we've come back up, we've now bounced on the 200. We are within 3 ticks. We also have a T19, so a T19 of course is our divergence trade, so we're up 3 ticks or so just here, very close, plenty of room to run down to the pivot. And you can actually see here we ended up having a nice double pivot, a big picture pivot bounce. So as I got up here, use the T1 to better qualify the trade. I like to see the T1, but once again, if you don't have the T1 indicator or you can't get it for your software package, just look for a close below your trigger line. That will qualify you into the trade. So in closing, traders, hopefully you picked up some ideas from this short video. Now if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe to the channel. Visit my website. I now have 2 free ebooks. I've got a training manual and the ebook The Truth About Day Trading. Even more importantly, for $197 you now get it's now over 15 different day and swing trading strategies, easy to learn. We've got cheat sheets on all of our key strategies, dozens of PowerPoints. There's actually over 80 hours of online video instruction. I provide full email support. There's over 20 hours of recorded live trading sessions and trading strategy recaps, and even better, I provide you with indicators for all of the major trading platforms. And very important, let me just say something about indicators. Traders, don't spend a fortune on your indicators. I'm still seeing traders spending many thousands on indicators. Remember, most indicators are just a derivative of price. You can get them from me for free, and most of the indicators we use are everyday indicators, just maybe fine-tuned to suit our style of trading. So traders, please subscribe, and hope to see you as a member, and hopefully you picked up some ideas from this training session. See you on my next recording.